What's up, and welcome to episode 4 of the Grind Line podcast. This is Tyler here alongside Greg and Ryan, who is still currently mowing the yard. How you guys doing tonight?
I'll let Ryan go first. He looks exhausted.
Well, I just got a workout in, then we got delayed, so I figured I'd mow, and I've got about 30 square foot of yard left, so I'm really excited. I'm staring at it in angst right now.
I'm doing pretty good. We haven't done a podcast in a couple weeks because it is the hockey dead season, but we got a little bit to talk about. There's a little bit.
Oh, come on. You mean you don't like seeing the 5-year extension for Jason Zucker? Or,
yeah, man. Or Montador getting signed. Like, Who gives a shit?
Like, come to me when Erik Karlsson gets traded or, like, something, man.
Or literally anything important happens.
I hope he pulls it Tavares. I hope that happens.
I think he's going to hold out.
God, I hope so.
He might, and then he'll probably get his way because, But anyways, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, so tonight what we're going to talk about a little bit is the I'm calling it the Henrik Zetterberg situation. That's what we're going to start off with, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what rookies we see making the lineup this season. But we'll start with Z and the news that there is basically no news, and in this case, I think that's a bad thing. The team has said that Henrik Zetterberg's not come to them to say whether he is playing or not. Henrik Zetterberg's agent stated today that he has no word from Zetterberg whether he will be playing this season or not. So there's no decision. We're assuming a decision will be made before training camp. Honestly, I don't fault him if he decides not to play. He's on the back end of his deal where he makes less and less money. They would just he's not going to retire because then he'll stick the Red Wings with his cap hit. I think they just LTIR him and move Larkin up to the front line. Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, I personally, the more I think about this, like early on, I thought, there was a chance of him playing. I think even Jeff Blashill had like a, it was, what was it? Like a mailbag with Helen
He
St.
talked to Helene, yeah.
Yeah, so, and the more I read that, I mean, the more it just seems like the guy he shouldn't play, honestly, because if you think about it, he didn't practice a lot last year at the end of the season. Granted, the team was going nowhere, and
he
that's
didn't practice the whole last half. The whole last half of the season, he didn't practice because of his back.
So that's kind of my point. Like, the team's going nowhere. The guy can't even practice enough, and he still plays pretty good during the games. He's slow. So, like, I just don't understand what he would be giving to the Red Wing organization. I mean, like, there's some long-term health, type, things
Risks.
there. I mean,
yeah, he's got risks.
Risk, definitely, with the back thing and everything like that. I mean, there's zero chance of him coming back, I think.
Really? Ryan.
Think I don't know if I'd go with zero chance, but I'd say it's leaning more for me 40-60 towards not playing, the 60 being the greater, which to me sucks because I still think he's an impact player, even though he's lost the edge and speed that he used to have. He's still a type of guy that you put on the ice and he's going to be an offensive threat. But he's a defensive liability now because he can't move up and down the ice like he used to. I think that's a big part of why Vanek was brought in, to try to make up for that, the fact that he can still do what he can at his age without the injuries per se. But I think the biggest thing, like what you mentioned, Greg, LTIR would be their best bet, because if they retire, they're not at a good point right now to try to dump him off as a salary dump to another team like Arizona, for instance, like they did with Datsuk. LTIR, that's fantastic, because then
Ryan, I think that's
what we're going to talk about later.
Ryan, I think that's part of the reason why Jeff Blashill came out and did that mailbag with Helen St. James, because I think, they wanted it to be out there that, he didn't practice a lot last year. And, then the obvious things, like, he's towards the end of his career. The team's going nowhere for the next, 1 or at least 2 years. And, I mean, by that point, he'll be gone. So, I mean, there's really not much more for him to give to this organization. Yeah, and that's kind of why I think he's not going to come back.
He's earned his place in Red Wings lore, that's for damn sure. And
I'm
not saying that I'm a professional athlete by any means, but a lower back injury takes everything out of you. And I am unfortunately one that deals with that daily. So I feel his pain in a literal, non-literal sense.
Absolutely.
I think what they do is they give him the pronger treatment. They'll LTIR him, and then he'll go directly into working for the organization, probably as a scout in Sweden with Lidstrom. And I mean, I don't know what else they would do with him at that point, but I think his contract's down to like 2 million or 4 million for this season, and then down to 1 million next season. So the risk reward for him just wouldn't be worth it. So I think his best bet right now is to quote unquote retire, but for the Red Wings to LTIR him. And I think we're all in agreement that's probably what should happen.
Do you think that's what's going to happen, Greg?
I'm with Ryan. I'm at 60-40. I might go up to 70-30, but I think it's more likely to happen than not with the way that the news has come out. Because normally, if they don't think it's going to happen, they'll go, "Oh yeah, no problem. Zetterberg's going to be back next year. He'll be on the ice. He feels great." Like they said with Cronwall. Now they're saying we don't know. We haven't heard anything. Well, he didn't practice the whole last half of last season. So the way they're framing it makes it seem not so likely. So
it's sort of like the Datsuk situation. Like, obviously Datsuk was a different situation health-wise, although, he wasn't the healthiest guy either, with the knee problem and everything. But, there was nothing for a while with the Datsuk thing, and then all of a sudden he had this pop press conference in somewhere in northern Michigan, right? And, he didn't even have Red Wing stuff on. He had like his CCM tracksuit on, and he said, he's returning home to Russia. We haven't heard anything from Zetterberg. The only thing we heard was at the end of the season, he said if his health was permitting, he was going to try to finish out his contract. That's the only thing we know.
Yep.
Everything else is, he say or she say. But, the more you think about it, the less you think he might be back.
He's playing golf. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't think so. But that leads us into
back.
No, I don't think he is. I don't think there's a reason for him to.
Where the team's at now, he'd be doing more harm than good because he's going to push himself even harder to try to help the team win, and that's just going to do more damage, I think. And I hate saying that.
Yeah, but Zetterberg's potential retirement leads us into our next topic, which is the rookies that could possibly make the lineup. Now, Zetterberg going on LTIR would open up a forward spot at center, which I think, and it's real hard to judge this, if you move Larkin up to 1C, you almost have to bring in Joe Veleno for that center spot. You almost have to bring him in as a 3C on the team. And we have no other centers really in the system that you're going to give that slot to right now. You move Larkin up to 1C. You're going to have Rasmussen come in, but they'll most likely play Rasmussen on the wing. You have Zadina come in. Zadina's a wing. They have to bring in a center.
Yeah, Veleno would be the only other option. Who would be the second line center at that point, though? Athanasiou, would they play him at center? Oh, yeah.
No, Nielsen.
Yeah, that's right.
Nielsen would take that. They just bump up, and then Rasmussen probably, I'd say 3C. Then you got Glendening and Veleno on 4C.
Well, I think they'll start Rasmussen on wing because that's what he's playing in the playoffs in Tri-City. Yep. It seemed to work for Larkin. Start him on wing and then transition them to center.
The other thing I could see them doing too is moving Helm back to center.
I could see them moving Helm off the team.
That'll be a different discussion. I think we've had that one also.
But what rookies do you think make the lineup, Ryan?
If we're going with the hypothetical here based off our conversation with Zetterberg, if Zetterberg's gone, Zadina immediately moves in. I think that's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
Rasmussen's the other no-brainer for how he looked in preseason last year, his juniors campaign, and then playoffs. There's no reason in my mind, and the way they're already talking about him, he's a lock.
They've already got him penciled in.
Oh yeah, he is the one lock of all of them right now. Zetterberg out. I think Zadina comes in because they're going to want a playmaker and a 200-foot player, and he's already shown a guy like Larkin, for instance, that he can do that type of action on the ice. Sticking to the forwards because I know we've talked about it before, believing that Witkowski and or both Ferk will be getting sent down. The only other forward I could see making it is that possibly Volino at center, depending on how his training camp goes in the preseason. And then also Svechnikov. But the problem there is all wings, no center. So it's going to be interesting to see because you obviously got Glendening out there and everyone has the hard on for him for whatever reason. But if he's anything higher than fourth line center, I might turn head into my new riot over Jonathan Ericsson.
Do you guys remember when he was on the first line wing a few years ago?
Let's not talk about these things. When he was with Zetterberg and Datsuk? No.
Oh, God.
It was Zetterberg, Abdelkader, and Glendening. That was the first line.
Oh.
Talk about
now people saying that Bertuzzi belongs on the first line. I'm like, he doesn't, though. He's not a first-line guy.
I mean, he's not a first-line guy, though.
No, put him on the second. I mean, try him on the second. I mean, I think he's a third-liner, but they're like, yeah, first line's definitely going to be Larkin and Bertuzzi and Athanasiou. I'm like, no.
No, it's not.
Why would you do that? And
only time I want to see Larkin and AA together is on the penalty kill.
Yes, I agree.
Yep. I think your first line this next season is going to be Larkin and then probably Zadina and Rasmussen. Honestly.
Possibly. Yeah.
Who else are you throwing on the top? Unless they end up deciding to move Nyquist up to the top line.
No, they'd probably
that, or they keep Mantha with Larkin because that's
if we're talking about the Red Wing organization, they'd probably put fucking Justin Abdelkader on the first line.
For your first line,
you know what, Tyler, you're Mr. Rain on everybody's parade tonight, apparently, and I'm already sick of it.
Introducing your first line: Justin Abdelkader, Darren Helm, and Luke Glendening. Here's your top line.
With Jonathan Ericsson and Danny DeKeyser as your top
your top D pair. No, it'll be Jonathan Ericsson and Nicholas Kronwall as your top D pair.
Yeah, 2007-8 freaking again.
Speaking of D, though, do you think Hronek makes it?
I do.
I think Hronek makes it this season.
You think he's going to be the first one over Hicketts?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think Hicketts is nothing more than a seventh defenseman.
I think Hicketts will make it. I think Hicketts will make it, but I think Hronek makes it before him because of his play last season. That's where Hicketts regressed in Grand Rapids last season. Hronek excelled. So I think Hronek makes the D cut over Hicketts.
I can see that. Again, I think this is going to be one of the most intense training camps I think we've seen in a really long time, and I'm pretty excited about it.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited that we're talking about it right now, to be honest.
Well, Blashill's comments about training camp were really good, too. Blash said that he's not doing – normally he would have who he thought would be the lineup on night one against people pushing for a chance. He said he's completely mixing it up because literally everyone has a chance this season. So I'm excited to see if he actually does that. And if he actually does that, I think guys like Veleno are going to just kick ass. Veleno kicked ass at the scrimmage that I went to, the development camp scrimmage.
Yeah,
he was a standout on ice. He deked around people. Exactly. So I think he has. If Zetterberg retires, I think you shift people up and you bring in Veleno as your center.
You know what I like the most about what you just mentioned with that Blashill piece on training camp and mixing everything up? He talked about how in the past, with how things were going, the whole bullshit Ty goes to a veteran.
Yep.
He completely flipped the script on that quote and said,
"Yep."
From that now, I got to say, Ty goes to the kid.
Yeah, and I think Tyler brought up a good point.
Go ahead.
I think Tyler brought up a good point on that. I think that comes from ownership. I don't think that's a Blashill choice. I don't think that's a Holland choice. I think that's an Illich saying, change your shit or you're both fired choice.
Yep. I think before it was coming from ownership. Look, we have contracts. We have to honor these. I think now ownership is like, you know what? We don't like what we seen last year. We want kids playing. We don't want these old fucks playing. So, if the old fucks, they earn their spot, then okay, fine. But we want young players playing because this mandate is from ownership. Make no mistake. This is the Illiches saying that, change your shit or you're fired, like you said, basically.
Well, Blashill's got the extra fire. I mean, I know they hired Dan Bilesman. That was a Blashill choice through and through, but you got a Stanley Cup winning coach as your assistant. He's going to be pushing you even harder. And I still love the fact that they brought Bilesman in. Don't get me wrong. But
I agree.
He's got extra pressure to fix the ship now or see ya.
I don't think that's something we talked about. I think the addition of Bilesma is excellent.
I've been wanting that for years.
Exactly. If Blashill would have been fired, I would have picked Bilesma as our head coach. And people point to his shitty seasons he had in Buffalo, but that was Buffalo before. Well, that was Buffalo before Jack Eichel. They didn't have a team when Bilesma was in Buffalo.
No, they had Eichel, didn't they?
It might have been his rookie
season. Had him like
season.
the first year, I think.
Yeah, but who else did they have? They had no one. No one was making an impact on that team. So you're going to fire him, okay, but you started him with a shitty team. He got Eichel and the team got a little better. You fired him and Buffalo still sucks. So it's not his fault that Buffalo sucked.
I mean, he did just fine in Pittsburgh. I mean, I don't know. The people that criticize him are idiots.
Yeah, he did fine in Pittsburgh until Pittsburgh also started losing talent. And then he got fired out of there. So any team that's losing talent, they're going to blame the coach, except for Detroit, I guess.
So I want to bring something up quick. I don't know who wrote it, but it was in the Detroit Free Press, and it was like the top 10 athletes of the top 10 Detroit athletes that could turn teams into champions again. And Philip Zadina and Dylan Larkin were 1 and 2 of that list. What do you guys think of that?
In comparison to the other teams in the city, yes, that's about the only thing I could see happening.
Yeah, I mean, who do the Pistons have? No one. Who do the Lions have? Matt Stafford. Was Matt Stafford going to carry his team to a Super Bowl? No.
Nope.
The Tigers the Tigers don't exist anymore.
No.
Casey Mize was number 3 on that list.
Okay.
Mize and Fido for Detroit, but they're still in the minors and they haven't come up yet. So until that happens, then their pitching is just shit.
You won't see Mize the thing with baseball is you draft a number 1, but you don't see him for 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah,
exactly. So I think Larkin and Zadina have the best chance of turning the team around quicker than any rookies that our other teams have. Yeah, the Lions just drafted Ragnow. Okay, one guy on a football team's not going to turn your team around.
They got Jean Francois today.
Who?
Ricky Jean Francois, defensive tackle. They picked him up.
Oh, I don't follow football very much. But basketball, our team blows too. So I think Red Wings are...
You got Blake Griffin to look forward to, right?
Before they made that, after they picked him up, and if they wouldn't have made the secondary trade after getting him, I think they make the playoffs and actually have a better team than what they do now.
Yeah, well, you're not going to beat the Celtics, so that's all that matters.
Oh, God damn it, Tyler.
They keep running polls like which Detroit team is most likely to win the next championship for the city, and honestly, right now I think it's the Red Wings. Like you could have told me the Lions before free agency, but then the Lions didn't do shit in free agency besides get LeGarrette Blount. So they're no closer to getting a Super Bowl. The Pistons are a goddamn dumpster fire. The Tigers are jumping in the same dumpster with the Pistons. The Red Wings are bad, but I think they have a better pipeline than all the other teams.
Yeah, hockey changes way quicker than all the other sports, too.
Yep.
Well, 2 players can affect your entire team.
Yeah, especially if they're on I totally agree. It's Zadina and Larkin over the next several years. The way they
especially if they hit on Zadina and Veleno. If they hit on Zadina and Veleno, they'll be back a lot quicker than a lot of people think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
having skill and speed throughout your first 3 lines, Detroit hasn't had that truly since 2009.
Yep.
So,
but that team was insane, though. They could put a first line of Datsuk, Zetterberg, and Hossa and just dominate the other team if they wanted to, and they chose not to do that.
Speaking of Hossa, he got traded.
His contract. They pulled a Datsuk.
So basically, the Coyotes have become a money laundering system for the NHL. We can just dump your contract so they get washed away, just so that the Coyotes can hit the cap floor.
Just so they don't have to spend money
about it with Zetterberg.
Fucking players. That's insane.
Imagine if all players that they took contract for came back for a year. Like the Coyotes would have a damn all-star team.
Oh my God, that would have been fantastic.
They'd be in the cup. They'd be in the Stanley Cup Finals next season.
Well, they're not paying Datsuk.
No, they would get. But if they got Datsuk back and they got Hossa and they got who they take, they took Pronger.
Yep.
Yeah. Imagine all of them come back for one season. They play for Arizona. Arizona makes the Stanley Cup Finals that season.
Yeah, they'd lose to like fucking, I don't know, Tampa or Boston or one of those teams.
You need to. You and your Boston shit tonight is gonna. It's really bullshit.
I'm just saying they're one of the best teams in the East. As much as I hate to admit, Toronto,
whatever.
I refuse to admit it.
I think. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the Red Wings are gonna be the next team to win a championship. The Red Wings have the talent. Oh God, don't ask me that. I think it's two more seasons before we're back in the playoffs. 5 seasons before we're in contention. I think we win a cup within the next 8.
I can live with that. I'll be like 35 years old.
That's fine.
That's all right though. You have to appreciate the bad time, or you have to live through the bad times to appreciate the good times anyways.
Yeah,
very true.
That's a good life lesson.
Here's the thing that pisses me off. People are like, I'm not a Red Wings fan anymore because they're not good anymore. It's like, well, were you ever really a fan to begin with then? Or were you just like there for the ride? That's what
bandwagon fans.
There for the ride. Yeah, that's to a T.
There's a zillion bandwagoners for like every team though. It's just kind of the way it goes.
That's just the historical success of the team is like where you pick up your Toronto bandwagons and your Boston.
Chicago might be the worst. My friend Ryan just brought that up. Chicago might be the worst bandwagon fans of all time.
Chicago sucks donkey dick, so they can go fuck off.
Yeah. Well, I think the good place to end it is at least we're not insufferable Maple Leafs fans.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good spot.
Tyler, I'm going to let you. Actually, I'm going to do this. Ryan, what's your Twitter handle so people can follow you?
At RDRyan33.
You can find me on Twitter at Bringing the Wing. Tyler?
You can follow me on Twitter at Tyler. Wait, what is it? SealDog91.
You forget this every time.
What is your goddamn Twitter tag? Hold on, let me look on Twitter real quick.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, God. You are...
every time. Seal Dog?
You're at SealDog91.
Yeah, that's
there we go.
Jesus. Continue. At least you know our podcast Twitter handle.
Yes, you can follow us on Twitter at GrindlinePod. You can also check us out now on iTunes and Google Play again. And as always, we're still on Podbean. For Ryan and Greg, I'm Tyler. Stay classy, Hockey Town.
Hey, you gotta keep